Oh, welcome into the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, postgame show this side of the Mississippi, south of the Arctic Circle, and north of the equator. And it is a very different setup tonight. Anthony SanFilippo still out. We wish him the best. He is out ill. We hope that the Spanish flu passes soon. But in his stead is the returning great Bill Meltzer. But who do I see on the end? Did Bundy get very handsome all of a sudden? The commenters are asking. John LeClair is here.
Listen, I'm a lot better looking and a lot smarter than that guy. You cannot confuse the two of us, please.
Tonight is Snyder Legacy Night. It's a big night down here at the arena. Flyers playing host to the Dallas Stars. That happens to be a team that Bill Meltzer is very familiar with, so we'll be getting into some game breakdown. But before we get there, John, I want to just kind of pick your brain a little bit since it is Snyder Legacy Night. When you think about Ed Snyder in your time here as a player, what's something that comes to mind more than anything?
Lots of things. I mean, Mr. Snyder was everything to this organization. He was a great leader. He had a desire to win like I've seen in nobody. And when people talk about being a Flyer, it started with him. Mr. Snyder was just a great man and a great leader.
Sometimes players, once they retire, they kind of go back and they reminisce about coaches they had, about teammates they had, obviously. And it seems like a lot of times players that ended up playing for an organization that had kind of an outspoken owner, they maybe talk about that guy a little bit more than the ones that are kind of shrouded in secrecy, we'll say.
Yeah. Mr. Snyder wasn't your quiet owner that, lived out in California and just, saw how the team was doing on TV. Very involved. And I think that's why everybody's got an Ed Snyder story. Everybody got a story where Mr. Snyder, did something or just made an impression on them through their career. He had that presence about him.
With a lot of teams, the owner, you have to wear a name tag. That doesn't matter what your stature was in the league. They don't know who the players are. That was certainly not the case with Ed Snyder.
No, it wasn't. And, that's what I like. I think, one thing Mr. Snyder loved about his team is, the effort they gave and that they wanted to be a Flyer. I think when you talk about guys that he would go out and sign, the one thing he kind of wanted to know is do they want to be a Flyer, and that was important to him. And I think you're seeing that now, with Hilf and Jonesy and Danny running the show. They're bringing that back a lot. They want guys that want to be a Flyer and want to do the Flyer way.
I guess one of the, it's always kind of tricky to go down that road, but people do seem to compare Hilferty a little bit more to Snyder than they did his predecessor. Is there anything that you've experienced where you're like, all right, there's at least a little bit of a similarity there?
Fortunately, I didn't have a chance to know the predecessor that well, but I do know that just from all the people I know in the building, it was a 180-degree turn when, Hilf took over. And Hilf's got a lot of the characteristics Mr. Snyder had. He really does. He's got that drive to win. He cares about his players, cares about his people around him.
So, one of my main memories of Ed Snyder, World Cup of Hockey '96. Of course, you're playing in it. Before the game, USA against Canada, Ed Snyder was at the entrance, greeting all the fans as they came in, and walking around the concourse, asking people what they liked, what they didn't like. They used to have the Flyers exhibit downstairs. You want to know what people thought about that, right? He wasn't in his box. He was out there with the fans. One thing I've noticed with Hilf, you go to Voorhees, he's walking around talking to people.
He is, yeah. So. Yeah, he's done a terrific job. I mean, the product's getting better. It's going to take a little bit still, and we're on it. It's a process, but it's just moving in such a good direction. And there's a lot to feel good about around there, and I think Hilf's the driving force behind that.
Your name has come up a few times, just at different levels and at different times, about your involvement around the organization. Can you give people a little bit of an idea of, you're out here tonight. You keep up with the team. Like, what are you doing around the organization these days?
Mainly being involved in hockey ops. I deal a lot with our draft picks. I deal a lot with our minor league team, and I'm here with the big club also. I've had my nose in a little bit on the power play stuff. I don't know if it's going to keep going with the way things are going, but we'll see. I've been able to touch all aspects of it, which has been nice, but predominantly a lot to deal with our draft picks and our younger guys, just having talks with them, just being around, and having whatever advice I can to them.
Something I want to bounce off you with the power play. One thing I noticed kind of recently, but really kind of ongoing. When the Flyers win that first face-off, they're kind of okay. But when the puck gets clear, they need another entry, and getting set up, that's kind of where the problems kick in.
It's so important to win that draw and start in their end. I mean, like, to have to waste 15 seconds and then not guaranteed to get in and set up again. I mean, the draw is critical, and that's one thing, obviously we've been focusing on and trying to, but a draw's a draw. I mean, there's good draw men out there. There's a lot of good centermen out there. But we are getting better at our entries, and we're getting the right guys, with the puck coming across the blue line, with speed. The timing can be better, and I think we're going to, hopefully that will come as we get more comfortable with our units.
Do you put a lot of, so the power play struggles, right? Like, there's a school of thought that says, look, this team is a rebuilding team. It's not one that has a ton of elite talent. Like, you look at the game against Toronto, the big money guys, the big elite players, they tend to benefit tremendously on the power play. When a power play struggles with a rebuilding team, is it fair for fans to sit back and say, hey, is it a systematic issue? Is it just that, look, it's a bunch of young guys and it's just hard for them to score? Like, how much of it really comes down on the players versus, even if it is coaching, to try to coach those guys up and help them find that success?
Well, I think one of the big things that people don't, and everyone wants results, but when you're watching the power play and you're going over the power play, we're looking more at the chances you're generating. And then once those chances, you're going to eventually score. That's the mindset. And we are generating great chances. We are getting chances on most all power plays. Yes, there could be more better chances, but we're generating chances, and that's the positive part of it. The next step is putting it in. But, like on that West Coast trip, the power play was actually pretty good. And we had chances that we didn't score on that, that didn't happen. But we're moving the puck and we're getting those chances. And to me, that's the biggest key right now with the power play. To me, it's coming along, but results, bottom line is results, and I get that.
One of the guys who was at least benefiting very early on in the season and finding a lot of success on that power play is Matvei Michkov. Obviously, things have kind of slowed down for him over the last 11 or so games. When you look at him and what he accomplished earlier in the season versus like where he's finding the struggle now, is that just a case of a guy where the opposition's able to just really hone in on him because he does bring a ton of skill and it's easier to try to shut that one guy down? Or is it just by nature of being a young guy in this league?
To me, I think you're seeing a little both. I mean, the things Mitch can do with his vision and the way he passes the puck, he's special. He really is special, and I think people are realizing that. So they are probably having a little more attention to him. But I also see Mitch just in his overall game a little bit. I think the season is catching him a little bit, and I think that, he's got to, that's part of being a pro. You've got to learn. The first year is tough. There's a lot of things that people don't understand, not just on the ice, that you got to deal with as a young player trying to figure it out. And I think some of that has caught up to him a little bit. The last 2 weeks, it just seems he hasn't had the same jump in his game as he did even 2 nights ago on Monday. But I think it's coming. I think you're going to see a real good second half out of him.
Does the travel play a lot into that? Because it seems like younger guys especially, like, I think a lot of times fans go, yo, you're young, you're supposed to bounce back. But, like, West Coast trips it's still wear and tear on the body, right? Like, your body clock's off for now.
It is. To me, everybody's different. Some guys it's more mental than physical. It's more of a mental grind for some guys than it is a physical grind. The travel is what it is. They're not flying coach, though, waiting for flights. So
Right.
The travel is what it is. I mean, you get in late nights and you got to take care of yourself, obviously, and do those things. And he does a good job of that, I'm sure. But, the mental grind, it's tough. And, the way he came in, being a star he is, he's probably got a little bit more than the average rookie coming in.
How much of it is conditioning? It's a whole other level of conditioning in the National Hockey League.
I think that's all part of learning to be a pro,
Yeah.
what it takes. Like, you might think you're in great shape, and then you find out what great shape is. I mean, for me, it took me a good 3 years to figure out what, that's the kind of shape I got to be in. I'd worked hard in the summer and thought I was ready, and, I wasn't to the level that I had to be at, which I learned later in my career that it's a different level. It is a different level.
What's the thing that sets it apart? Is it cardio? Is it strength training? Is it watching the diet? Because it seems like nowadays players are very honed in on that element, maybe even more so than in your playing days in Bundy's. We always give Bundy a hard time. I don't know if Bundy would have had as long of a career if he had to watch what he's eating like these guys do. What is that balance?
There is absolutely a balance, and I think that's what every player's got to find out, where their balance is. And I think, with Michkov, he'll find that balance, and I think he'll find it soon, just because of how, he's got a different mindset than a lot of, which makes him special. It really does. The way he sees the game and the way he approaches the game is different, and that's what makes him not just a good player, he's a star. And I think he will be a star eventually. But it's everything. It's your training, your nutrition, and we have a lot of help with that. That's one thing the Flyers are great at. Anything you need, they'll get it for you. And we have a great staff that will help him and help him get to the level where he needs to be.
The last thing I have for you, I don't know if Bill does, but we've asked a bunch of former players this, and Bundy's kind of offered from his mindset of his time in the league. When you have a guy like Michkov, when he came in, there were a lot of rumors about he could be a hothead. There were rumors that maybe he demands more of his teammates than you would expect a 19-year-old to. How much of a balance and how important is it to kind of find that balance, to have that burning fire of what you perceive to be a future star, but kind of finding your lane within a locker room?
I love that fire. I think people do love that fire, and I think we have the guys here in that locker room that know that you're not going to go over the edge with that. You're not going to push the limits and cause a problem with that. You need that. That's what separates players that want it, and you want players that have that desire in them. I don't think it's been detrimental to anybody on the team whatsoever, and if it was ever an issue, I think we got the right guys there that would squash it right away.
All good?
All good.
All right, John. The only thing
Bill agrees with me. I must be right then. All right.
The last thing that we had for you is something that we meant to do last year, and I'm going to pull intern Andrew up on the screen over here. So, intern Andrew is younger than me, and I am younger than you and Bundy.
It's all a ladder. Do you want to just get into it?
Intern Andrew has something that he wanted to present to you, and it's something that came from early in his life.
So when I was in second grade, I was in a Catholic school in Crofton, Maryland, and we were tasked with a school project we had to do a report on one city in America. And being in Maryland, basically all the kids in the class were doing either Baltimore or Annapolis. I wanted to think outside the box a little bit, and I did it on Philadelphia. So, I had a couple pages on the Liberty Bell and Independence Hall, but as I was always a big sports fan, I had to have a sports page in this report. So I wanted to have a picture of one player from each of the four teams. So I had McNabb, I had Jimmy Rollins, I had Iverson. There's Johnny. There's Johnny. I was 7 years old. This was from 2003. So I've had this in my backpack for a year. So I thought it'd be funny for the show. Will you autograph my homework assignment, please?
What'd you get on it first?
There's a sticker on it that says terrific. So.
Oh, all right.
So there's the page if you want to
pass
that down.
Yes. When you said outside the box, I thought you were going to say St. Albans, Vermont. That's really outside of the box.
That would have been something.
So, here we are. A lifelong dream has come true as John LeClair autographs. What year was that?
Probably 2003.
2003.
Right.
Second grade, you said?
Yeah.
How would second grade intern Andrew have felt? First of all, would intern Andrew have believed his name would be intern Andrew?
I wouldn't have even known what the word intern meant. That's pretty wild, though.
That's a beautiful moment.
I had to ask my dad how to use the printer because I didn't know how. But he printed out he Googled, this is back when the early days of Google, he Googled John LeClair and then went to images and there's that picture. So now...
This is a beautiful moment.
So now I'm 25% of the way there. I need Iverson, Rollins, and McNabb to autograph this also.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Good. Anytime.
All right. And on that, I think we're going to let you go.
All right.
I appreciate you coming on.
Bill will fill you in on Dallas and we'll let you go.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
You want me to move that camera or no?
Yeah, probably should. John LeClair, great guy. We didn't even have him pull up dirt on Bundy. We'll save that for another day.
Oh, yeah, that could
Bundy
make up a whole
Bundy
show.
was 100% convinced. He was like, Bundy said, listen, he goes, Johnny can get me. He's like, if Johnny really wants to get me, he can get me.
Yeah.
And we didn't set him up. Listen, we're already down one regular host in Anthony. We don't need something bringing Bundy down.
But before we transfer here, a great story with John. Actually, Bundy told me. We were just talking about you want to have a guy who has intensity, who cares about winning.
Yeah.
and Michkov has that. I will tell you a guy who had phenomenal junior numbers and could not have been, less engaged was a guy with Pavel Brendel. And so there was when Pavel was here, and John's always had just this wicked dry sense of humor. And there was a game, Flyers are trailing by a goal, and so on the bench they're trying to talk it up and say, listen, we're still in this game, blah blah blah. John speaks up and he said, listen, we just need to feed off of Pavel's energy and we're going to be fine, right? Meanwhile, Bundy looks down the bench at Brendel, and he's like this, half asleep, and he said it was like one of the funniest things that he's ever heard on the bench. So that's the anti-Michkov. But yeah,
Pavel Brendel.
Yeah.
You don't have Pavel Brendel in your second grade?
I have to be honest. I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Listen, it's okay.
He came over in the Lindros trade, actually, from the Rangers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Did you know that there was a Lindros trade? Were you aware of that?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Before my time.
I'm glad we're back to that.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So there are people asking. Anthony is just homesick. We are on
Not
this.
homesick, but yeah, home.
No, he's not homesick. He's home.
Yes.
Space sick.
Correct.
And we are wishing the best for him. I thought by now he'd be healthy. And then today he was like, I'm not doing that much better.
No.
Now, some might wonder if Ant is milking this for the sympathy. I am not. I worry about the guy when he gets sick because, he almost died during COVID. And so I can't, if anybody else gets sick, it's probably fair game. But Ant, we try to be, little tender care with the guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, he should be back Saturday. We will wish him the best and hope that he takes a lot of vitamin C. Isn't vitamin D supposed to help too? Wasn't that a thing with COVID? Was it go outside, get vitamin D from the sun?
The sun, yeah.
The zinc.
Yeah, I just remember one of them was how a lot of pirates got scurvy back in the day because there was a vitamin C deficiency.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's where limey came from, right? They were
Yes.
sucking limes. Anyway.
That's all I remember.
Well.
That's what I got from school.
Yeah. Anyway.
And you got the LeClair autograph on. Did he
There you
write?
go.
Did he write you a special note on that?
He did, but I haven't read it yet.
He was writing for a while.
Yeah, he was.
You should look at. You don't have to share it with the class, but you should take a look at what it says.
Yeah, I will.
Anyway, let's get into this game. Now, not everybody knows this. I think a lot of people do at this point. But in addition to watching and being the bastion of knowledge for the Philadelphia Flyers, in addition to his work for other outlets, in addition to knowing like the most obscure Swedish hockey prospect, trust me, Bill Meltzer also has a ton of knowledge about the Dallas Stars and has covered the Dallas Stars.
Right.
And so you are in the midst of kind of a meeting of the worlds.
Yeah.
I don't know how this feels for you to have to, but
there's no mixed loyalties here, but having covered both teams for a number of years, even doing some Stars part of this season, I try to keep up with what they're doing too, and for a long time, I always thought a guy who was born to be a Flyer, spent his whole career in Dallas, has been Jamie Benn.
Yeah.
So kind of always follow his career from the beginning with interest. But I mean, this Stars team, they're a legitimate Cup contender in the West. They could come out of the West this year. This is a very tough game for the Flyers. Not a lot of their players get publicity league-wide, but if he was in certain markets, for example, Rupe Hintz would be a guy everybody would know,
Sure.
right? When I look at Thomas Harley on their blue line, that's the player I would like Jamie Drysdale to become.
How realistic would you say that is?
He has all the tools, but he hasn't put them together yet. But if you look at the year that Harley's having, he's having one hell of a year, but he's never talked about around the league. But two things that Dallas does really well, I think you should watch tonight. Whether it's Harley or Heiskanen, they'll kill you with stretch passes if you're not alert.
Yeah.
And with Urson just coming back, Flyers have to be really careful the puck support is there, that they don't get guys behind your defense, because they have two defensemen that can make really good breakout passes. That's one thing to watch. The other thing too is plays out of the corners.
Yeah.
They're very good at getting pucks out to the slot and working pucks from down low to kind of the middle of the attack zone. Really good. I mean, last year the Flyers probably played their best game of the season against Dallas. When Dallas came, it was almost a calendar year ago. Flyers won that 5-1, and I think they outshot them like 46, 15, 16, something like that. That was probably the best game the Flyers played all year. It might have been the worst game Dallas played, but the general recipe for playing the Stars is to smother them with your checking, get the puck in deep, kind of the way that the Cates line has been playing.
Yeah.
If they could follow that lead, that to me is the way that you can beat Dallas potentially.
I mean, they kind of, to an extent, took away a lot of space that Toronto usually
They did.
uses. So in theory, if you roll out a similar game plan in this
Correct.
one, you have a chance.
100%.
Now, there is a concern here, and it happens to be between the pipes.
Yeah.
And so, let's kind of break this down a bit, because Sam Ersson didn't go on IR this time, but he did suffer his third lower body injury of the season. He had previously spent time on IR. This team, for whatever reason, decided to keep carrying 3 goalies.
Yeah.
He doesn't go on IR this time, but now that he's back in, I don't know about you. My thought is, did he come back too soon this last time, which was my concern, because they were like, well, they're still going to rotate in Kolosov, definitely not Fedotov, right? I said, well, if they're not ready to give him the brunt of the work, that tells me he's not fully healthy enough. All right, whatever. So he comes back, he gets hurt again. How careful do they have to, and how can you be careful with a guy who is, riding, again, his third injury of the season? Right. You can't lose him for the second half, but you're kind of putting him at some sort of risk here, aren't you?
There's definitely a risk. Groin issues tend to recur. And Sam has been healthy. Sam had 2 healthy seasons, right? If you go back to his rookie year with the Phantoms, though, he only got in 5 games, and he only had 3 starts before he got hurt the first time. Played 3 games, had a groin injury. Came back, had to leave his first game back. Was on the shelf for a month, had another groin injury, then was shut down for the year and had to have groin surgery. So, because he has a little bit of history, and now mind you, it's been a couple years since that, given the tendency of groin injuries to recur, it's a real concern. But I don't know what you do about it in season, other than try to strengthen in the offseason and just hope he holds up. But there's a real concern. I want to see him get through this game before I can exhale a little bit. The thing with Sam too was that got to look back. He had such a good preseason, good start to the season. Got injured the first time, came back, took a little bit of time to kind of get back on his game. Second injury took a little longer to come back from. Looked like he was getting on top of his game again, then got hurt again. I mean, right now at the midpoint of the season, they really need him healthy. Honestly, the Flyers had gotten better goaltending so far. You look how generally mediocre the Eastern Conference has been. Flyers are still only a couple points below the cutoff for a wild card spot. If the Flyers would have even gotten average goaltending, they'd probably have 4 or 5 more points, and they'd be right there for a playoff spot, believe it or not, even just being about hockey 500 so far. So
and I mean, they're 7, and it's funny because we were talking about this the other night, but they remain 7 points. If you're looking at the draft lottery, they are 7 points off of the second fewest points in the league. Chicago's their own mess.
Well, it's so tightly packed.
But it's crazy because you look at what I like to lovingly refer to as hockey purgatory. It's a pretty big group this year. And saying that there's parity in this league is probably quite the understatement.
That's one way to put it for sure. Obviously, as far as drafts and draft lotteries go, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you do help your chances if you draft early. But when you look at who have been the Flyers' best play, the NHL's doing the quarter century team, right? Well, Simone Gagne was picked 22nd overall, right? Giroux was picked 22nd overall. Justin Williams, who had a hell of a career, was, I think, 29th overall. It's when you can hit on some of those late first round and later round guys are the teams and Dallas is a good example of a team where they hit on, Robertson was a second round pick guy, right? So you can find players. It requires good development and a little bit of good luck, and maybe there's a little bit of an element of a little bit less of an element of luck when you pick a little higher. But wherever you're picking, you have to find a player. So you can find players. You just have to obviously pick the right guys.
See, and I totally agree with that, except I'd much rather them do that, like, when they're in the midst of trying to go back to contending,
Yeah.
and you maybe make the playoffs, and then, like, oh, great, you found a guy at number 22 who ends up turning into a Claude Giroux or Simone Gagne. Excellent, because that helps to fortify your team that has your Matvei Mishkov and hopefully your other high pick, maybe this year in year 2 of the rebuild. I don't know.
Yeah, well.
But I think that's where the frustration, and, like, I am very much, my flag has been planted in the same place here for quite a long time, and it does feel like there are more people kind of coming around to it. But Danny Briere did this interview with TSN Overtime a few days ago, and it sent Flyers Twitter into a panic because among the many things that he said was that you need higher end talent. Well, we all know that. But then there is also this thing that came out. It might have been 32 Thoughts, but there's another thing that came out that said, don't expect the Flyers to be that aggressive at the deadline in selling off parts. The offer has to be right.
Correct. Right. I know where you're going with it, and I totally get that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a year ago they dealt Sean Walker when they were actually in a playoff spot, right? And got a late first round pick this year from it.
Yeah.
If the Flyers could get a first-round pick for Ristolainen, where they're not retaining salary or whatever, I bet you they make that move, right? Every year it seems like Scott Laughton's name comes up. If the Flyers could get a good enough asset, but I mean, what is the Flyers' biggest need? It's going to be
they need
a first-line center.
They need a center, and nobody's going to trade you nobody's trading you a young first-line center.
Correct. So that you're not going to, and even kind of names that go out there like Pettersson.
Yeah.
I mean, Vancouver's in a playoff hunt, right?
Yeah.
Even a guy in a non-playoff
He's an interesting
team.
name though. Pettersson's name has been kind of not around here.
Yeah.
But just in general, and it does kind of get your gears turning a little bit.
For sure.
It has to.
For sure. And if you can put together a package to get that player, you have to. It's a guy who's been a 100-point guy in the NHL. If you can get that player, you have to go get him.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how doable it is to get him.
Sure.
Even a guy in a non-playoff team like Dylan Cousins, well, and maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I think when all is said and done, Dylan Cousins is going to be a Buffalo Sabre. And mind you, their GM is on the hot seat.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, if you're the GM that trades a young guy who's been a 30-goal scorer in the league with his physical tools, and after a couple kind of up and down years, he puts it all together, you probably won't be a GM in the NHL again.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of teams and GMs are risk averse.
Yeah.
And I think that hurts the chances of making a trade.
Especially one who might be at the end of that leash.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is why, I think that part of the frustration that's out there, and I had this one pulled up from earlier. Intern Andrew pulled it on the screen, and I'll bring it up here. So Vineet Singh asked over on YouTube, said, are we not jumping the gun by asking management to do more? Jonesy said they would only be sellers and that this was the year to see what they had with Kolosov and Fedotov. Hasn't worked, but had to see.
Yeah.
I said something on my show on Wednesday where I questioned aloud, at what point will the fan base start to turn up the heat? I think that we're starting to get to that point. The honeymoon of the new era of Orange, eventually it does run out, and it doesn't matter if you are a well-liked guy as a personality on telecast, on the radio in Jonesy. It doesn't matter if you are a very well-liked player in Danny. At some point, the fans are going to look, and they're going to look at the body of work and say, all right, how is this different? And I think that's where I've started to settle, where it's like, all right, I'll give you this trade deadline. But if you get through this deadline again, and Scott Laughton's here, then I go, well, I don't know. That's the kind of thing that Chuck Fletcher, most notably by me, would have gotten raked over the coals for.
Right.
I just sit back and I go, all right, Laughton is the guy to me where it's like, organizationally, if you can't develop a bottom six forward that can serve that role, that tells me there's a much bigger problem at hand. You want to make the case about Aristo because he's a big guy, he's playing the best hockey of his career, it's something different. But how long do you think is fair until the fans should feel within their right, I guess, to start to crank up that heat a little bit?
I would say this offseason.
Because
a lot of trades that happen in the offseason, those seeds get planted before the deadline.
Yeah.
And maybe the team isn't ready to pull the trigger until after the season. But if the Flyers have the draft, go into free agency, and they essentially the same team again without upgrades, then it's fair. And honestly, I think that it has worn off to a degree. I mean, social media isn't always a great barometer. So,
yeah.
But I do think there's a level of heat that's being turned up on Danny. You'll read on some of there, well, he's exactly like Chuck, right? Funny thing was Chuck had that one off season where everything kind of worked out that next year.
Yeah.
And he kept trying to recreate that, and it just didn't click again, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and Chuck also had the thing where he was like the guy who got left at the altar.
Slide down.
Like, Chuck was almost like the guy who got left at the altar, though, by Matt Niskanen, and kept saying, like, no, it's going to be okay. He's going to come back. And then he never came back. And they never, I mean, the Ellis trade obviously didn't work. And that was,
What do you mean?
What, the Ryan Ellis trade? You don't think that worked out for them, Bundy?
Well, he had 3 really good games.
They were 3 of the best games.
Right.
And you know what? That equaled 200 to the 3 he played so well.
Yeah.
You know what? Sometimes those things happen, man. You don't want to create them like that, but that was a rough one.
Yes.
And he's still here, technically, right?
Yeah, he's still getting paid.
Yeah.
Yeah, he comes into the summer, fails his physical, and he goes home.
Do you actually, you have to report for the physical?
You do. Otherwise, you're breaching your contract. So, yes.
So he comes in once a year,
He comes in, fails his physical, and he's good.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's not a bad gig.
Yeah.
It's a good gig if you can get it, Russ.
All right, let's get into tonight's game a little bit. Bill, we were kind of breaking down how the Flyers can maintain some momentum coming out of that last game. Did a good job of limiting the space that Toronto had to work in, and you mentioned that that's kind of how you keep yourself competitive against Dallas.
Yeah.
How do you see this one playing out, especially with Ersson back in net for the first time in quite a while? I'm a little bit surprised that this is the game they're bringing him back for. I would have expected Saturday against Anaheim.
Casey DeSmith is starting for Dallas. Yeah.
Rather not. That potentially could help. But DeSmith also had I think like a 35 save shutout over this year, so it's he can still crank up a big game.
Yeah. I said my biggest key tonight, and I just coming off the radio, was to keep going the way they were going. Like, I don't think the Flyers played a really good game. Like, they deserved far better than they got the other night.
They did.
And if they maintain the process and the way they played, you can't wish for more goals in the NHL. Like, you can't hope that it's going to happen, but you can control how you play and the process you go through it. And I thought they did a great job against a good team for 2 games, and all that came out of it was 1 point. The hard part is staying with it mentally when you feel you've done a good job and you're not getting rewarded with points for it.
Well, I'll say this, that if Michkov's another 8-shot game, he'll score. He's not going to have too many games where he gets 8 of them on it, especially some of the quality he had, and none of them will go in. Some of his games where points have been hard to come by lately, I don't think he's been involved enough. That was not the case the other night. He was good.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into our predictions. Bundy, you can go first.
Yeah, I've been on the Flyers wagon of late. I've been really not doing well, and I'm switching back over. I'm gonna go with Dallas tonight, only because when I look at Dallas, they are a very, very deep and heavy team. They got a lot of firepower. They can hurt you in a lot of different ways, and they're, to me, a more formidable matchup than even Toronto. So for that, I'm going 4-2 with Dallas tonight.
Our sickly colleague Anthony SanFilippo has sent over Stars 4-3. I think Sam Ersson's going to get lit up tonight, and I think there are going to be a lot of questions about why he started this game and why they didn't just bring him back against Anaheim. I'm going to go Stars 5-2. Intern.
I'm going to take the Flyers 4-3.
There you go.
Wow.
There you go.
I think they're due.
Ballsy.
It's not a bad. I was thinking about it, but listen. I picked the Flyers almost every night for the last 2 weeks, and it's not worked out.
It feels like a game they're supposed to lose,
also,
but they won't.
This is a great night to be here at this game for Ed Snyder Legacy game.
Yeah.
Flyers do a great job. There was patches coming in the building. I don't know if you talked about it, but Mr. Snyder's legacy will live on. I know the players and the people that work here in this organization. Tremendous guy, tremendous owner. The players loved him, and I think that doing this once a year for him is an absolute necessity, and I'm really happy they went ahead and did it.
If you're just joining the show now, you can always go back on YouTube. Earlier in pregame, we were joined by John LeClair, and he had some interesting things to say. He had some very interesting insight about Matvei Michkov and some other stuff. So if you want to listen to that while the game's going on, you can scrub back earlier into YouTube and X and Facebook. Otherwise, we'll be back first intermission, second intermission, and post-game here on the Snow the Goalie channel. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, and subscribe. We'll have the stat cast up here for the first and second periods and the third. And now, we bid you adieu for a little bit, and we'll be back here at the same link in the first intermission. Talk to all of you very soon. I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, it is Jamie Drysdale's world, and we're just fortunate to live in it.
Ugh.
What a period for the Flyers defenseman. If I'm John Tortorella, am I scratching him on Saturday? Oh, we'll get there later on. Anyway, welcome into the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show this side of the Mississippi, south of the Arctic Circle, north of the equator, west of the 51st state, Greenland, and south of the 52nd state, Canada. Do we keep that in?
Yeah.
You think
Absolutely.
so from now on?
Why not?
Okay. I didn't do a
Until the
pregame.
dream is officially dead, we keep it alive.
I didn't do a pregame because I didn't know how Bill and John LeClair were going to feel about it. If you missed pregame, during the second period, go back and watch. John LeClair was here. Bill Melzer was here. Not a great period for the Flyers.
No.
And I know that, say it kind of in jest, but Jamie Drysdale is having a bad game. And unfortunately, that has been the story more often than not this season when he's been in the lineup. Bundy, you and I were looking at the goals a little bit ago. Can you break down for the people what we saw? The first one was the one that was more open ice.
Yeah. Well, it ended up kind of starting as a short 2-on-1.
Yeah.
The problem with Jamie Drysdale is he played both plays with one hand on his stick, and he did not assert himself at all. When you're defending a play, if the play's to the net, the most dangerous guy is the guy without the puck, and he was unable to eliminate the player without the puck. I mean, it's a simple play. Lift the guy's stick up and push him out of the way of the crease. You don't have to kill guys like you used to. There used to be a time when I played where they would just come down on you if you didn't knock the guy's head off in front of the net or push him into the corner or just knock him out, knock him over, period. You can't do that anymore. The rules of the game don't allow it. It's not played like that. But he's got to have far more fire defensively than that. I mean, you can't just go out and go through the motions. And as a result, it's 2-0 Dallas because of his porous defensive play in that first period.
Can I ask a question? When you break down that play, and you're talking about having to assert himself on that 2-on-1, like making a play instead of letting it come to him, how basic is that? Like, how early do you learn that as a defenseman in your career?
Yeah, learning to play a 2-on-1 or simple plays. I mean, that's stuff that basic
like fundamental right?
hockey. Yeah, that's
like youth league stuff, right? Like
it is.
And
again, but there comes a point where you have to know when to put the compete button, when to hit the compete button, and when not to. I mean, when a compete button, when I say that, it's like when there's a loose puck in front of that and there's a guy there, you got to get on your horse. So you got to lift the stick up and shove him out of there as hard as you can.
Yeah.
You can't just sit there and be like, oh, I hope I lift a stick, or I hope the puck doesn't find his stick, or I hope someone else comes back and helps me. There was no one there. You got to do it. It's a matter of having a little bit of compete in you. I don't like tearing up players because I've been one myself, and I've made tons of mistakes. I've had rough games where I had low level of compete, and we were victimized, and I can say that, and that's happened to every defenseman that played. But it can't happen where you're reeling and the team's played well, and you're the responsible for the 2 goals in that period.
We have people saying like this, Browns MB23 says he plays afraid. Do you get that feeling from him? I mean, early in the season I said to you and to Ant, there were times that I would watch him play and it looked like a guy who was afraid of getting hit again because he's missed so much time in his career with the shoulder injuries.
Yeah.
But like, we're far enough into the season, like, I don't know if I see the same kind of afraid. I see a guy that doesn't look confident.
Just compete. It's just a matter of putting your stick down on the ice and getting into a puck battle for the loose puck. That's it. That's a loose puck battle. 2 of them, and he's lost both of them. You just get 2 hands on your stick in front and get ready to get in there and get dirty. I don't want to say it like that, but that's the fire that's got to come from the pit of your belly to not allow that goal in.
So if you're the coach, right? If you were his coach, or you were a coach and you had a player who looks like he does, is it fair to consider pulling him out of the lineup? If not tonight, then for the next game. I feel like forwards are often the ones who end up getting kind of crucified for making a big mistake, right? It seems like forwards are the ones who they make a big mistake, coach yanks them, they're out for a game, you watch from the press box. It doesn't feel like Torts does that as much with the defensemen, right? Have we now seen enough to say, like, it's probably beneficial for him to watch a game from the press box?
But he's done that. He's watched games from the press box. He's been spoken to. In a matter, there comes a point in everybody's NHL career, if you want to be a long-time player, if you want to try to eclipse a 7-8 year mark, then you have to figure out your path forward. And it comes down ultimately to having some understanding of defensive zone coverage. And it has, more importantly, has everything to do with the compete level that you show your teammates and you show the other team. And on those 2 goals, Dallas is going back in that locker room and is saying, one guy over there doesn't look like he's too ready to compete tonight is Drysdale, make sure we try to take it to him. That's what happens when the other locker room, they know it, they see it, and it's hard to get away from it. Anything else you want?
No, I'm just saying that, like, I'm looking at it because it's a brutal reality.
And I'm not, and I don't like sitting here like saying, because I've made mistakes, and I think people understand what I'm saying. Like, I've had rough games, and we all have. Eric Desjardins has had bad games. It happens where everybody does. So I don't like to always throw shade at somebody that's struggling. But this is
if you're not performing, you're not performing. And our job is to critique.
And they're putting him out there. It's to critique fairly and honestly.
Yeah.
And that period was not good enough for him. And the coach is going to know that as well. He played him again on the power play after. Not much happened after that. We'll see what the second period looks like for Jamie Drysdale. It's hard to sit a defenseman in the game because there's only 6 of them. So when you're laboring, you're putting 5 guys out there. It's not fair to those 5 guys. That's why you need to have all your defensemen going in a game, because you don't want to sit a guy out. It's very hard to do that.
I like this. McCard Steve says, I'm here to bitch about Drysdale. Am I in the right place? You can certainly bitch about Drysdale if you want in the comments. By all means, you have a lot of people to commiserate with. Our goal here, for people who are new to the show, our goal is to provide fair and honest criticism. Now, sometimes you don't get that everywhere. Sometimes it's all rainbows and smiles and everybody's, the second coming of Wayne Gretzky. And with us, that's not the case. You listen, I get it. From your perspective, as a player who played a long time in this league, you don't want to get bashed by the media, especially if you feel like it's unfair. I think we have collectively, as a show, given Jamie Drysdale a lot of time here to try to find his game, give him the benefit of the doubt to work himself back in. My concern is that he doesn't, I said he doesn't look like a confident player. He doesn't look like an NHL player right now. And
that's a problem. And then there's guys on his heels. You had Andre, you got Helge Grans.
And Helge Grans.
Yeah.
Listen, did they make mistakes? Yes. Were they part of... Listen, somebody would say this is unfair. I'm sure that our friend Anthony would say this is unfair. There is a growing narrative that the reason, or part of the reason, why Jamie Drysdale hasn't been scratched is because he was the centerpiece of the Cutter Gauthier trade. It's bad PR. It looks really bad, and it looks like you're admitting you made a mistake in that trade if he's not in the lineup every night if he's healthy. But at some point...
He was the feature player coming back.
He was,
no doubt
and
about
he's not living up. Now, in fairness, Gauthier's not lighting the world up in Anaheim, but those two will forever be tied in that trade. If this is a meritocracy, he's not earning this playing time, and it's been consistently bad much of the season. I just don't know how much longer, if you are trying to send the message that everybody earns their minutes, I don't know how you keep coming back to this guy and saying, yeah, he's earned it. He looks bad.
Doesn't look good, but I will say we probably talked about him long enough. Let's see what happens in the second period. Let's see what kind of ice time he gets in the second period, or if he's relegated to just power play. But Dallas has a good penalty kill too. The Flyers power play did not do much at the end of that period either, so
we were talking
not overly happy.
Talking about to your pal John LeClair here pregame about the power play, that he's been doing some work with them. We just talked. It was a lot of insightful things. Again, people can go back and listen to that during the second period here on YouTube, X, and Facebook. We'll go to one of everyone's favorite segments here on the Press Row Show during the first period, and that, of course, is the wonderful, the majestic intern Andrew, who is here.
Yes, hello.
With the stat of the night.
I know that I've centered a lot of my stats of the night this year on Matvei Michkov, but I don't have a whole lot to go on for this game particularly, and in a lot of ways he's been one of the few bright spots on this team this year. So we mentioned him a little bit in pregame and how he was buzzing the other night against Toronto. Had 7 shots, I think, but somehow didn't. Was it 7 or 8?
He had 8.
8 shots on net. Okay.
7 through 2 periods, 8 overall.
Did not get a point in that game. However, Bill said in pregame that if he is able to replicate that kind of energy against Knight, he probably scores.
Yeah.
Regardless, if Michkov is able to get a point tonight, he will become the second fastest Flyer in the last 30 years to get to 30 career points. This is his 40th career game tonight. The only Flyer that did it faster in the last 30 years was Gostisbehere, who did it in 38 games. That's 30 points. He did it in February of 2016.
That's a good stat.
Yeah, that's a good little stat tonight. Yeah,
good little stat.
Michkov's been okay in that first period. I don't think he didn't have any kind of those a period like he did the other night, but I thought he was okay. Flyers just need to get their game back on. Again, you can get deflated by 2 goals like that. And they're going to have to find the mojo. You got to find some offense somehow. I mean, the Rangers put 4 up against them the other night.
You know, there were people that were kind of going after Sam Ersson in the comments. I don't really think that Ersson had a bad period.
I don't blame Ersson at all.
No, those were not. I think you put a lot more of the onus there on Drysdale in both cases. I talked to Bill about this pregame. Ersson's coming off his 3rd lower body injury. He didn't go on IR this time. He had been on IR previously. How careful do they need to be when giving him this playing time? Like how much do you worry about a goalie who's now had 3 groin lower body injuries in a season? Can they ride him as a starter at like the normal amount of workload that you would expect? Or do you think that they're more likely to go to like a 50-50 here for a week or two until they see how his body reacts?
We're going to have to see how they react to it, right? And, yeah, I mean, and it is a groin, right? Everybody knows it's a groin injury that he's been dealing with.
Well, Bill mentioned groin. I don't know if he was reporting that, but we know that he did have a groin injury earlier in the season
right.
and had tweaked that again. So lower body, we'll call it.
LBI.
Yeah. I mean,
lower body injury.
My concern, like, if you remember back when he came off IR and they were carrying 3 goalies, they said if he can't handle the majority of the workload, then maybe he's not fully healthy. To me, it's just a concern, right? Like, if the idea here is he is your number one, I'm not saying like he's going to suffer a traumatic injury here and it's going to, cost him years off his career. But I do wonder at what point you're putting him at risk, and I guess we'll find out. If he bounces back, if he has a good game tonight, the body responds well, you'd assume he'd be back in there on Saturday, correct? Or do you think 2 games in 3 nights, you probably go back to Kolosov or Fedotov?
I would probably say they'll go back to one of the Russians, I would say, after this, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, and I guess maybe it depends how tonight goes, but I mean, are they at a point where can they really say that they have that absolute number 1 goaltender?
I don't think so.
I mean, they would say it was Sam, but I mean, are we really in a position to say, yeah, that's the number 1 guy through and through, and if he's not playing, we don't know what we're going to do?
I mean, in fairness, that's what they went into the season expecting. It's just that the injuries really did him in. Kind of blew up their plan.
Yeah, and then it's funny because the 2 goalies, Fedotov and Kolosov ended up kind of carrying the Flyers out of the cellar.
Yeah, they had a good stretch, and then he came back in, and it seems like every time Ersson comes back from injury, it takes him a while. I mean, it takes him 4, maybe 5 games to kind of get back up to speed. The unfortunate thing if you're the Flyers is that you're probably not going to win those games, or you're not going to be as competitive in them, because it's almost like he has to get himself worked back up.
He didn't get hurt again there. I read something on one of our comments. He didn't get hurt again at the end of the period, did he?
I don't think so.
Ersson? No, I don't think so. I think someone was just being smart on there. But, no, I did not see any kind of re-aggravation or anything that suggested to me that he'd left the game or was re-injured at the end of the first period.
Let's go out to the comments. Sometimes we like to dive into the comments on YouTube, X, and Facebook. Just a reminder, if you are on X/Twitter, you have to click on the video first, and then you can comment in like that old Periscope view. Otherwise, we can't bring them up on the screen. Old Man Ferguson asks, are the Flyers the lightest team in the league? They always look small.
I don't know if they're physically the smallest team in the league, but there's times, I mean, they do have some smaller players.
They play small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not like Dallas. So if you look at Dallas, for example, Dallas is considered amongst the hockey pundits and teams that understand the league. Dallas is a heavy, deep team. That's the kind of group you aspire to get to. That's how you end up winning playoff rounds and can, have a fan base that is going to be pretty happy with the product every year and can live with the results no matter what they would be.
Titan Flyer has a good question for you. Asking, would you agree that a goalie can only be as good as the defense in front of him?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, yes. If you have a great D, I do agree with some of that. But I do think that this Flyers team has made it a requirement for the way they play that they have to get an extra save every single game, and that's been hard for them to do. The extra save doesn't mean making one save wins you the game.
Yeah.
It means it stymies what any kind of offensive momentum the other team might have. It prevents them from taking a pivotal lead into the end of a period. Those are all that one save we talk about, and the Flyers have not had that one extra save. People are asking, do you blame Ersson in that period? I don't blame Ersson. Now, a goalie pundit is going to tell you that he probably should have stopped one of those two.
Yeah.
You know, could he have? Sure, he could have,
yeah.
but it didn't happen. So that's the way perspective looks from the fans' view. It's not always right, but it's usually somewhat, there's some accuracy involved in it.
Mr. Bone 99 says Dallas does a great job with development. They have a strong mix of veterans and youngsters. I guess as you look to become one of those teams that can compete and gets to be one of the stronger teams in a conference, that is important. I mean, it's all about the winning along the margins. It's drafting well, it's getting the free agents that plug the holes, and then it's eventually developing some of the guys into roles to fill it out. We've kind of broken this down on this show about where this team is at right now and how many of these guys we think are actually going to be here long term.
Right, and that's where you put your trust in management to decide whether or not who's salvageable, and that's their call. You know, we're going to keep this guy because we think he's going to be a part of our future, and their job is to get that right. And it doesn't always happen where every management organization gets it together, you know. Sometimes you have a hit where you weren't expecting it, and sometimes you have a miss with somebody you thought you were going to hit on. So that's the game of hockey. That's going out and shopping in an open market sometimes.
There were people looking for a new goalie, and there was one that was thrown out there, and I'm just going to make sure we're going to flash back to this one really quick. I don't know, Bundy, if you remember this one. If this guy's available, though, he'd be a really massive get for the Flyers in net, especially if you lose Sam Ersson for an extended time. Of course, who could forget the great Duncan the Walrus. Remember Duncan the Walrus from the commercials? No?
Oh, yeah. You got to pick high corners on him, don't you?
Actually, as a matter of fact, this isn't Duncan the Walrus. I was told that this was Ken Hitchcock playing in net at a practice.
He was a little long in the tooth that night.
What did Hitch have to say about goalies?
They should save every shot that comes their way. That's funny, Russ. I've never seen that guy before.
And on that, we'll be back for the second intermission with trivia time with intern Andrew and postgame here on Snow the Goalie on the Press Row Show. Subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to all of you during the second intermission here on the Press Row Show. So, hey, Bundy, question for you.
Yeah.
Let's come up with 3 things that you would rather do right now than watch the product on the ice.
It's been rough. I mean, the Flyers had a couple chances that period, but it just feels like Dallas just comes at you in waves.
Yep.
And they do, and they just like I said, they're just a deep, heavy team, and they don't make a lot of mistakes. They get the puck cleared way easier than Toronto did the other night. When the pucks go back, the Flyers have not had any sustained forecheck at all in this game. They've had a couple chances on the rush that were basically one and done. There's not a whole lot going on in this hockey game for the Flyers. They're trying to manufacture some chances, but I'll tell you what, when you're down 3-0 to Dallas, you got a tall task ahead of you. I'm not saying it can't be done here in the third period, but you're really behind the 8 ball.
They haven't shown you much to believe that there's a comeback coming in the third, but who knows? Bill Cinco checks in over on you. Stop clicking on the comments, intern. Says, Ayers still hurt, playing for his starting job that he lost through 2 periods. Let the Russians play. I said this before. I'm honestly surprised that Fedotov didn't get another start here and that they didn't try to put Ersson in on Saturday against Anaheim for his first start. Bill Meltzer had said pregame, the way to stop Dallas is to do effectively what the Flyers did against Toronto, which is just limit the space.
Take away the middle of the ice, and they've not been able to do that. A little bit in the D zone, they've done okay, but Dallas is, they had one possession, they had the puck in the Flyers zone for almost 3 minutes, 5-on-5, just cycling, chipping away at it, and that just sucks the life out of your team defensively in those situations. So that's a little bit hard to play like that. But the Flyers weren't as bad in the second period as they were in the first period. But again, it's finding ways to get some offense. And Tyson Forster hit the crossbar in a nice shot. There's a couple quick plays out front, but nothing sustained. No cycling, no digging in and trying to make the Dallas defense work. The Flyers are trying to score on the rush, and I'm sorry, but it's just too hard of a task to do against a team like Dallas in a game like this tonight.
Philly fan says, Danny B and Jonesy need to go in the locker room and tell these guys it's unacceptable to play like this on a night to honor Ed Snyder.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you that would be in the cards. Like, we're going to go out and play hard for our owner, but
there's no personal connection there.
There's not to any of these guys. I think there is to a lot of the fans and people in the building. But I'm not saying like they didn't have to know Ed Snyder to compete hard at Ed Snyder. Sure. But it had nothing to do with that. It just had the fact to do with Dallas had a good start. They played a good hockey game, and I think right now they just need to figure out their game a little bit, offensively especially.
Joe here has been giving me a hard time on the Twitter of for a few weeks now, maybe a few months, but they always come around. Says, well, I'm finally with Russ. Team needs a top 10 pick bad, one of the top centers in the draft, and then.
If you really want me to really specify that, if you're drafting and you're going that high, you may as well go higher and get in the top 3.
Yeah.
I don't care about the top 10. You could have guys from picks 6 to 10 that could be good players. They don't mean they're going to be game changers. You get the top 2-3 picks. I think that would probably be something a little bit more special down the road.
Yeah. Andrew Fawcett says, intern Andrew popping up the Penn State game cast was a nice touch. Nope, that wasn't you. No, about the stats. I was trying to get the 2 to go up on the screen at the same time.
I was trying to say, it actually wasn't me, Andrew. It was Russ that was doing it.
I figured that the people who are watching on the stream right now, they might like having both box scores, but we are technologically limited. There is a way to do it, and I've considered doing it, but I don't know if I want to do it.
It's all right.
In theory, we could. But I don't know if we have the rights to. I don't actually know how
Intern Andrew, I can tell you right now, does not have a whole lot of focus on the hockey game.
Admittedly, I don't. I'm embarrassed to say that I do not. Although, from what I've seen, it doesn't look like there's a lot to focus on tonight.
He's usually a good boy. Tonight's not that night.
I get it. He went to Penn State. He's rooting for his team. Look at the Lions driving again, deep in the Irish zone right now.
Allard had a terrible pass that was an interception, but it got brought back because of the hold.
Which was a good call.
Very fortunate, though. Very fortunate on that call. Although it was the correct call. Jeff Kirsch asks, Russ, why are you such a troll? Because I'm small. And I like to hang out under bridges.
I don't think that's the reason. Come on.
All right. Browns MB23 says that the Stars are 17-1-1.
Yeah, when leading after
2.
Yeah. That's about what that number is going to be. But you know what? They're playing a Flyers team who have 6 come-from-behind victories when down in the third period.
That is correct.
We're going to try to find a silver lining here for everybody
Listen,
tonight.
if the Flyers somehow come back and win this game, that's a statement win.
If they could find a way to come back in this
year.
game, it would be the win of the year if
Yeah.
they come back on Dallas here. The way that Dallas has played, Dallas has been really good.
I did say 4-3 Flyers. 4 unanswered in the
You're
third.
the only one to pick the Flyers. I don't think
I
you're
was,
getting the
yeah.
point.
That's gonna hurt me in the standings.
Yeah. All right, intern Andrew, let's go to everybody's favorite segment here in the second intermission show, and that, of course, is Trivia Time.
This trivia question is brought to you by that Penn State touchdown scored by Nick Singleton. 9-0, good guys. All right, I actually think this one's going to be fun.
Define good guy.
Penn State.
Well, you're way ahead of even the feed up here on our TVs and the Snow the Goalie.
Oh, I am. That's another thing I ruined for you. Sorry.
Sportsbook.
Oh, he spoiled another game.
I did. Sorry.
That's the
Dude,
third game.
he is notorious at destroying people's games and watching the fun in a sporting event. No one sucks the life out of a game like intern Andrew.
Let's tell the people about what happened with the
So I'm watching
with World Juniors.
I'm watching the Flyers game the other night when it was Sunday night. Who were the Flyers? Where were they?
They were playing the Maple Leafs.
They were playing Toronto. They were playing Toronto. So the World Junior game is up. So of course I record the World Junior game because I'm focused on our responsibility to cover the Flyers.
Yes.
So I pay no attention. I don't turn Twitter on. I'm going to watch the World Junior game after. I get 17 minutes into the first period. It's 1-0 for the Finns. And Andrew's like, man, can you believe they came back and won that game?
That's not what I said.
Oh, they won in overtime. It was a raunchy little cheer. And you should know that you've got it.
Back-to-back gold medals.
That's it. That's what it was. You got to know that there was a Flyers game and that we had to watch the other game after.
And I told you got to have the multi-TV setup.
I'm not doing that.
You got to, man.
No, I need to keep my brain occupied.
It's
So I watch one game and then I watch the other one.
2025.
Yeah. Don't ever text us as final excitement again.
Lesson learned. I will not.
Well, the best part is that this happened earlier in the Flyers season, too.
Right.
That intern Andrew spoiled something because Bundy wasn't at the TV
So
in that moment. And it was when Couturier scored an overtime winner. Bundy had walked away from the TV for a minute. And he comes back, and intern ruins the game. Well, do you want to tell everybody?
It was Nashville.
Do you want to tell everybody what you said about World Juniors after he spoiled the ending for you?
Yeah, well, this is the truth. I know that the U.S. obviously won. I didn't even know a score of the game until 2 days ago that they won in overtime. I had no idea.
4-3.
Yeah,
Bundy,
I turned the game off because
Bundy,
you did that.
Bundy was adamant that because intern ruined the score for him, that he wouldn't watch it. He didn't want to see how it played out. It ruined it for him. I would actually like to know in the comments, if you know what the score is, do you have any interest in going back and watching the game?
Still an exciting game.
I just want to know from the people out there.
I mean, we're talking to.
I think it depends on the
If
sport,
I know a
too.
score of a game, I won't watch it.
We're talking to Philadelphia sports fans here. How many times do you think they've gone back and rewatched that Super Bowl against the Patriots?
That's different.
That's a different thing. There's people do it with their grandkids.
That's a
and stuff.
horrible comparison.
Whatever.
That's a terrible. That was terrible.
The first time I thought the rule only applied to Flyers games. I now know it applies to all sporting events. Don't text Bundy, but that's fine. Lesson learned. Yeah.
We're
okay.
sportsmen.
All right, fine. Want your question?
People agree with Bundy, by the way. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Trivia time.
I think this one will be interesting, actually, because I said I'd be sprinkling them in this year.
Yes.
Let's do a little Bundy trivia.
Ooh.
So in March of 2004, you were traded to the Dallas Stars.
I was.
It was you played 11 games for the Stars that season. So let's test to see how sharp your memory still is. That 2003-2004 Stars season. You remember the Stars captain and 3 alternates.
Yeah. Mike Modano.
He was the captain.
Yeah. Yuri Laterra. Or Yuri...
Not that one.
No. Hold on. It's just a Finnish player. Great player. Defensive player.
No. Not from Finland.
Okay.
I think you've actually mentioned this guy on the show this year. Because you talked about playing with him.
I'm just trying to... I'm going... Billy Guerin was on that team.
Yep.
He's an assistant, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So Modano, Billy Guerin. I'm trying to think of... Sergei Zubov.
Correct. That's a defenseman.
That's a defenseman. He was definitely an assistant captain.
That
And
was
the
the
third
one
one
he's mentioned before?
The third one I was thinking
you were
of
paired
was,
with Zubov, weren't you?
I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. The third guy, or the third A, is the guy that I'm thinking, but I don't.
It's not a Finn.
It's not a Finn. Okay.
No.
And the Finn I'm talking about, if anybody could give me, I played with him, and of course I can't remember his name. He was a phenomenal hockey player. He was like the glue guy for Dallas when they won the Cup. And even when I played with him, people, even the guys there said this is one of the most underrated hockey players on the planet. He was a Finn for Dallas, and I've got a complete brain cramp. Yuri Lettinen. That guy was unbelievable. He wasn't the other one, right?
No, it was not him.
Okay, so was he a forward or a defenseman?
He was a forward.
Stu Barnes.
Nope.
Teppo Numanen was there. You got me.
He's from Canada. I know that doesn't really narrow it down, but...
How about an initial?
Just one initial?
Yeah.
Okay. If I give both initials, it'd actually be pretty funny.
Right,
It's BM.
BM, huh?
Yeah.
You got me.
It's Brendan Morrow.
Brendan Morrow. Yeah. He ended up being the captain after that, actually. When I left, he ended up, when Madonna retired, he became the captain.
Okay. I didn't know that. So the interesting thing that I learned in researching for this question, this was actually Modano's first season as the captain. Because
Therien Hatcher was the
Hatcher.
captain.
That offseason, he signed a 5-year deal with Detroit.
Right.
And then he left. So bring it all full circle. Obviously, Hatcher played here. Did you play with Hatcher at all in Philly?
Did.
Okay.
Yep.
How was Hatcher as a teammate?
Good guy. Yeah, really good guy. Good leader. Good guy. You know, played hard. Played hurt.
Didn't he come here the same offseason as Mike Rathje?
He did. Me, Rathje, and Hatcher were the 6-5 signings they had. Some people liked it, some other people didn't. That was the end of my road for me. Anyway, at least I can be honest about it. It was a little harder. Big guys could play, but there was no adjustment period for us. It was like we're given a whole new set of rules from what we were used to playing for a decade before, and it just changed the whole game. It allowed for smaller players to play. I like the clutching and grabbing and stuff. I mean, there was still a lot of offense, but I know people hate it now. I mean, you can't touch anybody anymore.
Yeah. Philly Phantom coming in here with some... This, I think, is actually part of what's wrong with hockey. So Philly Phantom says, just bought 3 tickets to the Devils game in March for my dad's birthday. Generic seating. Cost was $445. The team's not very good and hasn't been for a decade. How is this remotely justifiable? Well, it's remotely justifiable because you decided to pay for those tickets. I don't mean that in a mean way. But the reason that they're able, I assume you bought them from the secondary market, and the reason that people are able to get that kind of price is because there are still people willing to pay it. Now, if you had waited until closer to that game, you probably would have got it for cheaper. I don't know. I don't know how you can justify it.
They got a Flyers. Interesting enough, though, next game, they have Cutter Gauthier coming in. Would be crazy to see what kind of crowd there is that night.
We've been talking about this game for a year.
Yep.
I have a different question ready for the Anaheim game Saturday. But initially, my question was going to be, do you remember what team the Flyers were even playing the night that he got traded? Because that was the least concerned we ever were doing the show with the actual hockey game that was happening.
I kind of remember the night. I don't remember
Say
the
this
game.
again?
Who did they play the night Gauthier got traded?
Yeah, because we spent the entire game just talking about it. It was Pittsburgh,
yeah. It was Pittsburgh because we were we were getting high up for that game anyway because Battle of the Keystone State.
Right.
And then you had to deal with the fact that the Pittsburgh fans were like, wow, you guys just dealt your top North American prospect.
It was unbelievable.
That was one of the craziest nights. Anthony has to be back for that game.
Has to
for
be,
Anaheim?
Yeah.
He's alive, right? You know that?
As far as we know.
I texted him this morning and he was alive.
Okay, good.
He sent his pick over, so we assume that at least as of a half hour before puck drop, he was alive.
Ant would have been one of those guys. He wouldn't have played hurt when he was playing.
You don't think so?
No. He's probably at home listening right now.
He's probably watching right now. He's watching right now, and now he knows what it feels like to not be here.
Well, you guys can kick my rear end anytime you want, so I won't take it personally. It's all in good fun, Russell.
I said pregame that I am not taking shots at the sick Anthony. I'll make fun of everybody else when they're sick, but after the guy almost died during COVID, I just have a soft spot in my heart for that.
Did you see the fight the other night?
Yes.
That was just
the Toronto fans?
The Toronto fans laughing, and the Philly guy just went up and cracked both of them.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? There's a violation in there, okay? Because there were people going, oh, it gives Philadelphia a bad name. Philly already has a bad name. But You know what I found actually kind of startling about it? So the Toronto fans are down at ice level, right? The glass to their back, and they're kind of like waving, kind of mocking, and I think, I don't know if it was pregame or, I think it was pregame. And
it wasn't after they won?
I don't know.
Yeah, it was after the game.
Was it after the game?
Yeah. After they won, yeah.
And this guy in a backwards Eagles hat comes down the step, like over the seats, and then he kind of goes, ooh, and then he punches the one, pop, 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 pop. But neither of the Toronto fans goes down. In fact, the one kind of shrugs it off. The skinnier guy kind of shrugs it off, like, what are you doing? And then security takes the guy out. I think it's a big, like, how embarrassing is it that you sucker punch two guys and you don't even get either of them to really stagger back at all?
Really weak punch.
Weak punches. A very weak base.
It shouldn't have happened. I mean, there's no place for that in any arena. And I'll be honest with you, like, I hope that guy gets reprimanded, because if all it means is two fans smirking at you after the game, you got to be tougher than that.
Yeah, I mean, my rule is obviously those Leafs fans are being jerks.
Well, yeah.
But like, if your team wins, you're allowed to do that. You won.
Yeah, but why would you go punch two guys in the head? You're going to be removed from the building forever.
Yeah, I know.
It was stupid. And to not lay either of them out.
Get your money's worth. Of course, that went all around. I was reading Twitter the other day. It was up in Canada. Everybody's trashing Philly. Like, whatever. Get over it.
What was your best fight in your career? The one you were most proud of?
Jeff Rogers. He was tough, and I'm like, you know what? I got to fight somebody tough, and he came after me, and I'm like, oh, here we go. This guy was farm tough. Like, he still had dirt on his nails from when he was a teenager. And I did well. Nobody won. He didn't win. I didn't win, but I landed on top of him, so some people might say I won. I never called it a win. I called it a good fight.
That would have made Joe Rogan jump up cage side. Bundy take. As long as you land on top, I consider that a win.
Gives you a little bit of room. You know, you fight once in a while. It wasn't like, I wasn't like Dave Brown. Like, Dave Brown loved it. Like, he loved fighting. And there's not a lot of guys that did. I want people to know that. Most guys don't love it. Human nature becomes part of it. And then there's a few guys that are completely twisted and they absolutely love it and live for it.
Did you ever get challenged to a fight and you looked at the guy and you're like, absolutely not?
I've never had a guy challenge me where I turned him down.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't get challenged a ton, but that would be a hard one. Like, I'd rather get beat up than say no.
Is there anyone from your playing days that, had they challenged you, you'd have been like, oh boy?
Well, if you get like one of the league, like if a Bob Probert,
yeah,
like, you got to really think about stuff like that. It's in your best interest. See you next
we'll be back
after the game.
Post-game. We'll see if the Flyers come back in this one. Whether they do or not, we'll be here post-game on the Snow the Goalie channel. Make sure you like the video, share the video, and subscribe. We'll talk to all of you post-game here on the Press Row Show. Welcome into the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, postgame show this side of the Mississippi, south of the Arctic Circle, north of the equator, west of the 51st state, Greenland, and south of the 52nd state, Canada. I did that all in one breath. I was running out of air. Listen, there are times where we do a postgame show. We're really proud of the effort that we put out for postgame. We sit here. Sometimes we're here for 45 minutes yelling at each other about the rebuild and how honest and earnest the organization is being about it. Tonight was Ed Snyder Legacy Night. The Flyers, this was not, look, if there was any kind of added emotion or what, it didn't come across.
The better second and third period by the Flyers, but
yes.
It was 2-0 Dallas also at the end of the first, so what else were they going to do? It was a really, really bad first period, and that set the Flyers back quite a bit in that hockey game.
They never were able to recover.
They were never able to fully recover in that hockey game at all. No, they weren't. Dallas is a good team. They shut things down. I mean, they make it very difficult to get plays to the front of the net. They take away space in the middle of the ice, and the Flyers just didn't have it in their game tonight to make this an interesting one.
And, we said, coming off of 2 solid performances against Toronto, where they were able to kind of suffocate the Maple Leafs and not give them a lot of space, the Flyers were able to remain competitive in both of those games. Ivan Fedotov in net. John Tortorella tonight decided to go back to Sam Ersson for the first time in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He didn't look bad. We broke down earlier in the game. The first 2 goals really were Jamie Drysdale plays, and I think that the big takeaway from tonight's game is not about Sam Ersson. The Drysdale issues in the first period are really what stick with me. Do you feel like he looked any better later in that game?
He was better in the second and third, but I mean, again, the damage was done. I mean, the game-winning goal was already scored in the first period. So I mean, listen, he had a rough first period. He played a better game after that, but man, you got to really dig in there. It doesn't matter what part of the game it is. Early in the game, late in the game, you got to find a way to defend better than that.
I'm looking over at pregame. Our good friend Bill Meltzer said if Mishkov gets another 8-shot game, he's going to score. Mishkov followed up an 8-shot effort the other night with 2 shots on goal. He was a -3 tonight.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it was not a great game for Matvei Mishkov tonight. Had 5 giveaways in the game as well. So certainly not a banner night for him. Now, the reason that we bring up all of what feels like a lot of negativity is because there really weren't a lot of big positives to take away from this game. The one maybe is that they looked more competitive, low bar, more competitive in the second and third. They never really gave themselves much of a chance. Morgan Frost does score a weak dribbling goal, which is still a positive, but they never really were able to get anything going. There was no sustained pressure. They did create some chances, but it never really felt like they were like the ice was kind of tilting in their favor.
It didn't really feel like the Flyers were going to get back in the game. They got 1 goal by Morgan Frost in the third period to make it 3-1, and then Dallas ended up getting the Heiskanen goal from the long distance empty netter. Flyers pulled the goalie with about 4:20 remaining in the third period, realizing that it was going to be a very tall task to score 2 goals with the empty net against the Dallas Stars. Dallas is a good team. I mean, and really, you watch the way they play. They can be the team to come out of the West. They could.
Yeah, they could be.
They've been sitting on that for a little bit of a little time now, and the way they're playing right now. See, everybody, I think that they could be lined up good for a special run if things go their way.
Now, I have good news for everybody because Saturday, we all know, this is a game that if the one in Anaheim is one that Cutter Gauthier circled on the calendar, apparently the circle was for the 0 points he put up in the game. The good news for the Flyers is that, at least as of right now, Anaheim, if things continue the way that they are right now, will lose their second straight game tonight. They're currently getting blown out 6-2 with 2 minutes and 16 seconds left in the second period in St. Louis.
We got an Irish touchdown.
Is there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, is that why intern? Oh, let's pull
look
up.
at intern.
Oh,
Put his mug on there.
Look
Get his mug on
at
the
him.
TV.
Oh. I'm not a perfect person. Did you do some emo music for you?
A lot of football left.
Not for the Penn State Nittany Lions.
There wasn't when you were up 10-0.
How much time is left? 10 minutes and 48 seconds
In
in
the
this
third.
quarter? Yeah.
I know everybody's watching. Everybody's watching.
You know, the funny thing is, too, like we had this conversation. Are they going to leave the game on up here? The Flyers might have actually done their fans a service tonight to put that on the scoreboard.
Can you imagine that?
No, but I mean, maybe. Anyway, we'll get back to it here. This was not a great game. Now, as I was saying, Saturday, Cutter Gauthier and the Anaheim Ducks come to town. It is a game that Flyers fans have had circled on their calendar. We'll see. Anaheim's
gonna be
not
interesting.
Anaheim's also not a good team, but they're they're well under 500 if you consider the overtime losses as losses. But
did someone say they aren't going to play Cutter? There's no way. You cannot. He has to play.
Yeah, right.
Some guy said that they're going to scratch him for that game. There's no way. You can't do it. He's going to have to face some music at some point. You may as well get it out of the way in this game. He's going to hear it. Like, he's going to hear it in ways like you've never could imagine.
I think it's going to – and the question I think you had brought it up earlier in the game. What's that attendance going to look like on Saturday? I think it's going to be damn near a sellout.
Yeah.
And the reason that people are coming on Saturday is not to cheer on the Philadelphia Flyers. It is to mercilessly, relentlessly boo Cutter Gauthier.
There's no doubt about it. I think.
Is this like when you think of
no one told Cutter beforehand though that this was probably the wrong town to do that in?
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna have to live with that one for as long as you're alive, and then some after.
Yeah.
You can't even come to this town to visit after you're done playing.
That's the kind of thing that follows a guy.
It follows him around for a long time. Anyway. Tough loss tonight. I didn't like the process of the game. I didn't like the way it went the way they played against Toronto. They did not play like that tonight. And but one thing, it was great. I don't care what the final score was tonight. It was a great night to honor the former chairman and owner of the team, Ed Snyder. Great owner, great person. There's a lot of former alumni here tonight that have had special relationships with Ed Snyder over the years. He was a great person and sorely missed even to this day. He was Flyers hockey. He was the Flyers. Yeah. And I think it's an amazing job by Dan Hilferty and his staff to make sure that they honor the legacy of Ed Snyder every single year, and they did that tonight. Jay
Grebby asks, will Drysdale play Saturday? In theory, based on how he played, especially in the first, I said to you, like, if we're going meritocracy, he probably should sit a game. Optically, there's no chance they don't play him Saturday. Right? Like the optics of
you have to
the guy that you were, like the guy who was the centerpiece of the trade coming back this way. If Gauthier's playing, Drysdale has to play. I mean, just imagine the optic. That would look horrific.
Yeah.
So maybe, hey, here's a question for you. Drysdale spent the early part of his career, he's still very young in this league, spent the early part of his career drafted by the Ducks. They gave up on him. They dealt him to Philadelphia. Could Saturday's game give him a little extra, and could that be the game that maybe gets him back on the right path? Could it?
We'll see. We won't know until the game is played, Russ, but it's a viable question. Both guys will be linked to each other, and they're going to try to compete hard because they were the two guys traded for each other. Forget the pick. It's always the two players involved at the time. So it'll be interesting to see for sure how both those players show up and perform on Saturday night. But Cutter Gauthier's got himself he's going to get himself a salute here like he's never imagined in his life. And you know what? And oh yeah.
That's what we're calling it.
What'd you say?
A salute.
A salute. Yeah.
He's going to get a salute.
He's going to get a one finger salute.
Yeah.
From many people, they're going to be small children giving the one finger salute to Cutter Gauthier on Saturday. Don't you worry. All right. I think it's probably time for us to head out. If anybody is offended by the fact that we didn't really break down a ton of what happened in this game,
there wasn't a whole lot to break down.
The breaking down happened on behalf of the Dallas Stars. They broke down the Flyers tonight.
And Andrew's going to have a coronary over here soon too.
I'll be listening to Steve Jones in the car ride home.
What channel's that on, by the way? For the football. What channel up?
On the radio? Yeah. You have to stream it from your phone. If you go to Penn State's website.
I'm not going to that.
No, you don't. Are you serious?
Well, maybe you don't have to, but
otherwise I thought you knew where it was on the Xfinity dial.
If Kevin Harlan's on the call?
Whatever you call it.
Are you talking about on TV or on the radio?
Radio.
Yeah, I always go to Penn State's website.
You go to your local guy. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's
cool.
No,
but I want Kevin Harlan.
Listen, I appreciate all the pomp and pageantry that comes along with Penn State football.
Thank you.
That's right.
My daughter's marrying a Penn State football player in June.
Good for her and good for him. That's a heck of a get for him.
That sure is.
Some people would look and say,
absolutely.
Good for her. No, good for him. All right. Marrying into a heck of a family.
Thanks
Imagine
for
this guy's your
Mike,
father-in-law.
thanks for that 12, 10, and 94. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. We'll be listening to that in 5 minutes in the car.
Fantastic. All right. we will be back on Saturday for the epic showdown between Jamie Drysdale's Philadelphia Flyers and Quitter Gautier's Anaheim Ducks. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to Snow the Goalie on YouTube. You can also follow us on X and on Facebook. And this is always available in the podcast feed, the Postgame as well as regular Snow the Goalie. And I even put a bonus episode from Pregame the other night, Adam Kimmelman breaking down the World Juniors. I'll probably do a bonus episode from Pregame of this show where John LeClair came on and talked about Matvei Mishkov, the power play, a whole bunch of other stuff. So, subscribe to the podcast feed as well. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, and wherever you get your podcasts. So, for Bundy, for Anthony SanFilippo, wherever he may be.
And alive and well is all we're hoping.
We are crossing our fingers that we have a full cast and crew here on Saturday. The guy's got to get the voice back. He's got to get feeling better. Intern Andrew had the moment of the night getting that second grade project autographed by John LeClair. Again, go back and watch Pregame and listen. Anyway.
You missed that one.
That's good. I like that. He doesn't mind. He's a great guy.
No, he's a nice guy about it.
Yeah.
All right, we will be back on Saturday. Until then, this has been the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show. We'll talk to all of you Saturday. There it goes. Saturday night.